Schmack-a-magob, everybody. And I came up with this idea, and I wanted my friend Eddy Cannistraci to join me, but I didn't tell Eddy the full story. I just told him, I want to talk about certain Beatles songs. And then he asked me a couple questions. I go, well, I can't tell you. I'd rather tell you on the show. So here's the deal, Eddy, that you do not know.
Okay.
On this episode, there's going to be 3 people reviewing these songs. And you're saying, what? Are you going to add somebody? No. I am going to add the opinion of somebody from beyond the grave. These are songs that John Lennon does not like by the Beatles.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's a good theme. And you know what? I'm definitely a good guy to chime in on this because even though I love John Lennon and he's probably my favorite Beatle in the Beatles, like musically, like, I like his songs the best. But I disagree with a lot of the things that later John Lennon said when he got together with Yoko and started hating on the Beatles and some of his best songs. I read a lot of these quotes that you're probably going to drag up from those like later Playboy, Rolling Stone interviews. And I would read these things he would say about some of these songs and be like, I can't believe you said that about that song.
That's how I feel, especially one of his off
Yeah.
It's like, really? But I have a feeling that John probably, if he wasn't assassinated, he would have came around in the 80s and said, you know what, these songs are awesome. What am I talking about?
Yeah, I totally think that. So yeah, this is great idea. Great idea for a video.
All right, so I'm going to start with the first one. Twist and Shout off Please Please Me. And this is what he had to say about it. He said that it doesn't seem right, when I play this on a bill with other colored performers, I feel sort of embarrassed. It makes me curl up. I always feel they could do songs much better than me. All right, what do you think of that?
Okay, I mean, I never seemed to bother Mick Jagger, and he was like totally culturally appropriating in a way I don't think John Lennon ever did. Even when they did, R&B or soul songs, I felt they did them in a very unique way, in their own way, and I think John Lennon had a very soulful and powerful voice, and I think. I like a lot of times I like the John Lennon version better. I like Twist and Shout. It's not even one of my favorite Beatles songs, but I think John Lennon rips it up vocally, and I think that he was, he needed. I understand what he's getting at. There's a little bit of some bullshit white guilt I think he has there, but he shouldn't have it because he sounded awesome. He sang the song great, and he should have embraced it. That hey, I'm doing this, and I mean, yeah, I disagree. Even though it's not one of my favorite Beatles songs, I think his vocal performance is so impressive on it that he's not giving himself enough credit. Like, there's a lot of soul in that voice, He doesn't just sound like a white boy. He sounds like a guy who went through some shit, He had some shit. He had 2 parents that left him, and it's not like he was just some privileged guy that went to business school like Mick Jagger. John Lennon went through some shit. All the Beatles, they were real poor, working class Liverpoolians. So I disagree. I respectfully disagree with John Lennon. What do you think, Ralph?
It's all right. It's a very important song for the Beatles, and they played it for the Queen and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not one of my favorites, but I do not dislike the song. And I do love the John screams at the end. So that's how I feel about that. I'm kind of with him a little bit. All right, the next one is I'll Get You. And he said, that was Paul and me trying to write a song, and it didn't work out. I'll take it. I'll Get You's like, it's kind of like on the lower tier of Beatles songs for me. Again, I don't hate it, but I feel like not one of the better songs. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I was never a big fan of that one. It's all right. I don't think anything the Beatles did is bad. Like, probably the worst stuff is probably some of those like Burt Bacharach covers, like on Please Please Me. But even that, it's not horrible, or Taste of Honey, stuff like that. I wasn't, too keen on. That song's just kind of a filler track, in my opinion. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not one of my favorite Beatles songs by any means. So I'm kind of with him on that one.
All right, the next one, It Won't Be Long Now. He said it never quite made it. That was the one where the guy in the London Times wrote about the something Beatles, which started this whole intellectual bit about the Beatles. What do you think about It Won't Be Long Now?
I love It Won't Be Long. I think that's great. It's funny because it's not a song I would think about in an intellectual sense. It's just like a really great kind of almost proto power pop song. It's just really catchy. It's just, pure melody. That's like a pure Lennon McCartney melody, the kind of thing that you could hear inspiring like Cheap Trick and Nirvana, like Nevermind era. Like to me, it has that kind of vibe to it. I mean, I love it. I love that song. So yeah, it's an odd stance he took on that one. I don't know, something he was thinking about, that reporter or something.
Yeah, this is the first one I totally disagree with him. This is a great opener to With the Beatles, good rockin' tune. I don't see anything wrong with this song at all. Next one, Hold Me Tight. John said, that was Paul. Maybe I stuck some bits in there. I don't remember. It was a pretty poor song, and I was never really interested in either way. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see a Paul bias starting to emerge, but yeah, it's not one of my favorite songs on that album. But I love With the Beatles. It's one of my favorite Beatles albums, and it has a great guitar riff. I love that guitar riff. Again, kind of power pop song, proto power pop, very catchy. It's like hard hitting but catchy at the same time, and I like it. It's not one of the best songs, but still, like most bands. Like even most of those British invasion bands, if they had a song half as good as that would be like one of their big songs, But the Beatles, it's just another song, because that's how good Lennon and McCartney were out of the gate.
Yeah. Again, I would put it in the lower tier though. It's not bad because it's the Beatles.
Yep.
But yeah, this would be low on my list as one of my favorites from them. Next one is I Should Have Known Better. He said, that's me, just a song. It don't mean anything. I should have known better. I'll take this one. I love this song. It's a fun song off the movie where they perform it in the movie. And I absolutely love this song. I totally disagree with him on that. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one of his classics, one of his early classics. And when I was younger, this was one of my favorite Beatles songs. Not so much now. It's a little overplayed, like a lot of stuff on Hard Day's Night. But it's amazing. And it's funny, he says it means nothing, but when you hear him singing, it doesn't sound like it. Like his vocals are so passionate and so emotional. Like I really love how John Lennon sang in those early albums, especially like the ballads or the more emotional sounding songs. Like he just had an amazing voice. And I don't know, he says, it meant nothing, but it didn't sound like it meant nothing in 1964. That's all I'm saying. Like I feel like 1964 John would have told him to fuck off. This means a lot to me.
Oh yeah. All right, next one. 8 Days a Week. He said it was Paul's effort at getting a single for the movie. That luckily turned to be Help, which I wrote like that and got the single. 8 Days a Week was never a good song. We struggled to record it and struggled to make it into a song. And it didn't work out. And it's a lousy song. What do you think of that?
Well, I definitely disagree with that. It's not a lousy song by any means. It sounds like he is kind of projecting the situation, like that it wasn't quite, yeah, it's not Help. I'll agree with him there. Yeah, it's not Help. It's not a song you hear and you go, wow, let's build a whole movie around it, So in that sense, I guess it did fail. But as just a standalone, just as a single, and from it ended up being on Beatles for Sale, it's definitely one of the catchiest songs on that album. And it's a great single. It's a catchy song. I kind of get what he's saying, so I don't entirely disagree, but I do really like the song, and I think that if that's the Beatles scenario for a failure, well most bands wish they failed that way.
Yeah, I gotta say, I disagree 100%. There's like, I believe my first memory in life had to be either this song or Help or, oh, I forgot the other one. We can work it out maybe. One of those three songs. I'm pretty sure it was this one though. Eight Days a Week to me is like a pop masterpiece. It's just perfect. And yeah, when he talks about how, oh, they struggled, yeah, I can understand that because if you listen to the anthology, it's a different version of the song. They were working in different ways. But I feel the one that ended up on For Sale is the perfect version. Amazing. Absolutely love it. All right, next one. Off Help. It's Only Love. And he said, hold on. It's Only Love Is Mine. I always thought it was a lousy song. And yeah, I didn't like it. Now, I'll talk about this one. This one I disagree with the most of all these songs. This song is beautiful, gorgeous. One of my probably my second favorite song off Help, right behind the song Help. I love It's Only Love. I disagree big time with this one, Eddie.
Yeah, same here. And in fact, I remember, I disagree with that so much that I remember years ago when I read that quote. And I was like, because that's like one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs, actually. It's on both Help and also the original US version of Rubber Soul. And that actually was the Rubber Soul I had first. I had the US version, which was on cassette. So that was how I was introduced to that song. And also, I've Just Seen a Face. So even back then, it was always one of my favorites. It's got so much moody atmosphere. It's like a ballad, but there's verses. There's something kind of dark about those verses, but then it's very sweet. It's ultimate bittersweet song, and it's just a lovely melody. And John's singing it so amazingly, and he seems to like that word lousy. That's lousy. That's lousy. He's just kind of a grumpy middle-aged man when he said the shit. It's like, dude, when you were in your 20s, you were feeling love. You were feeling these things, and now you're just like a grumpy house husband. So you're shitting all over what your young, passionate self was doing. That's my takeaway anyway. But yeah, I totally disagree. This song's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. You were talking about the U.S. version. I started buying Beatles albums like a fan in the CD age, and it was the UK pressings. And I have looked at some of these American things, and it's just, I think, what is it? Help starts with, you got a high.
Oh yeah, the cassettes they're weird. They got a weird. That's not how they were originally released in the '60s, but there were these cassettes in the '80s that I had. Yeah, they have really weird track sequencing. Like "Good Day Sunshine" opens Revolver. "Here Comes the Sun" opens up Abbey Road. It's like fucking psycho. I was like, who the fuck put this track sequencing together? And yeah, the Rubber Soul one was actually legit. That was just the original US version. So it was I've Just Seen a Face, which I think works as an opening. But it was weird though. But that version of Rubber Soul I had was apparently very rare. I got rid of it later. I didn't realize. I actually had this really rare US stereo mix of Rubber Soul that I found out years later was not out there. Not too many people had it. And for some weird reason, I had this cassette. It was very random. That's one thing you don't have nowadays, where you would just go out to a record store and buy a cassette and then it'd be some weird random version. You know what I mean? Like everything's so streamlined now, and like the Beatles catalog is so like perfect and canonized, and wherever you're at, it's going to be the same damn album. But it wasn't like that in the 80s. Like as a kid, you buy a cassette and it was like you got all kinds of weird versions of Beatles albums. So that was fun.
To
But
me, Drive My Car should be the only song that opens Rubber Soul.
see, me, because that's how you heard it first. That I heard it first with "I've Just Seen a Face." So there was something about how that song segued into Norwegian Wood that worked for me. Although I love both versions. That one, either way, like Rubber Soul's amazing. So, but yeah, I just always loved that song. And yeah, John Lennon just nothing disrespectful, but you could tell like people have different opinions at different points in their life. And what seemed like a throwaway kind of bubblegum song to him as a middle-aged man obviously, I don't feel like the 20-something John would have felt the same way. Like that song, "It's Only Love," sounds very emotional. It sounds very real to me.
Yep. All right, the next one, "Yesterday." So the lyrics don't resolve into any sense. They're good lines. They certainly work. You know what I mean? They're good, but if you read the whole song, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't resolve anything. So I'm glad I didn't write "Yesterday." What do you think?
I think John protests too much. He always had this yesterday complex, if you know from a lot of his quotes. He brings it up a lot because, yeah, it was one of the Beatles' biggest songs. I mean, I don't know, this idea that everything has to like resolve at the end. Why can't it just be a simple song where Paul McCartney's singing about a love that's gone that he's pining for? That's it. End of story. Like, not everything, like it. Why should it resolve? Like, he's supposed to then meet the girl and say, "Hey, it's me again," or I mean, it's just like a 2-minute, pop ballad. It doesn't need to resolve. It's just about capturing that mood of wistfulness, of pining for something when you think back, when you're thinking back to a love in the past. Like, so I don't think it needs to resolve itself. That's pretentious.
What did "Imagine" resolve?
Oh, yeah. Imagine it resolve anything. That's a simple. Hey, wouldn't it be nice?
He's talking about imagine no possessions while he owns 5 houses around the world.
Yeah, at the end, did he
What
say,
does that resolve?
I'm gonna sell the Dakota at the end and give it to charity?
Yeah.
Money to charity. Yeah, I mean, did "I Am the Walrus" resolve something?
Yeah. The Walrus, you can't even start to resolve something in that tune. Song so out there.
Yeah, so I don't know. He's just I love John, but sometimes he's full of shit.
I'll go on the record and say "Yesterday" is better than "Imagine." Yep, that's right.
Yep.
I said it. And it's one of the greatest songs ever written. I believe it's the most covered song ever, I think, or it was at one time. And hey, love it or hate it, it's a staple. It's a huge, probably the biggest Beatles song. All right, the next song, "Run for Your Life," the last song on Rubber Soul. Said it had a line from an old Presley song, "I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man," is a line that was just sort of a throwaway song of mine that I never thought much of. But it was always a favorite of George's. I don't know who he means, George Martin or George Harrison.
I'm assuming he means George Harrison.
Okay.
I don't see George Martin being so into this kind of scrappy rockabilly song. You know what I mean? If I had to pick, I'd say kind of George Harrison.
Well, what do you think of that song?
I remember this quote too because this is one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs. I love this song, and yeah, it's I mean, it's a line from one of his main influences, Elvis, and it's a great song. The original version, it's "Let's Play House," I believe. It's in the Sun Sessions, and that song's great. But this is even better, and it's so dark and meaty, and yeah, it's got obviously, I guess, Yoko made him feel like it was misogynistic or sexist, because it kind of is, but it's kind of like that John that sings in like I'm getting better, like, I used to be cruel to my woman and beat her, kept her from the things that she loved. It's like about this abusive guy who's like, threatening his woman. It's a dark song, but a lot of those old blues songs are like that. A lot of old folk and country songs are like that, and to me, he's keeping up with that tradition. And I love the sound of the guitars, and George Harrison has some great licks on it, which is probably why he likes the song. Great kind of Scotty Moore style rockabilly, licks, and it's great. It's kind of one of the last. Yeah, this is kind of the last kind of old style rockabilly kind of Beatles song before Revolver, where they wouldn't do songs like that anymore. So I think both lyrically and musically, it's kind of like a last hurrah. I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs. It's even one of my favorite songs from Rubber Soul. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's like definitely up. It's one of the higher songs in my opinion. It's one of my favorite songs. So yeah, so I definitely disagree with him there. He's being a pussy. This song's awesome.
I agree, man. It's total puss move. This song rules. Great ending. Great. It's just melodic and catchy and stuff that only the Beatles could have done. And whatever. I disagree with them 100%. All right, next one. And Your Bird Can Sing. He said, another horror, another one of my throwaways. What do you think of that?
I definitely disagree. This is another one of my favorite Beatles songs. I always loved it. You know, when I first heard Revolver, I hold that's actually the worst of all the US versions because it's simply Revolver but with less songs. Like there's nothing really new. It doesn't bring anything else to the table. It's just like why would you want a Revolver with less songs? So that was the US version. It's just got less songs. So I didn't hear this until I got a later copy. But as soon as I got that later copy, as a teenager, this song really popped. Those guitar hooks, very kind of like proto Thin Lizzy almost. Like it's like a dueling kind of guitar lead, very ahead of its time. Like this is very, very ahead. Like if you listen to this 1966, there wasn't maybe Jeff Beck a little bit, but like there wasn't really a lot of electric guitar playing like this, at least not mainstream. Maybe there were in like little clubs and shit in England, but this is like proto metal, like that guitar hook. It's really, really cool. And I love that soaring melodies, and it's a wonderful song. Now, when you heard this new, Revolver Super Deluxe that has the different takes, there are all these takes of this song where I could kind of see why he might have grew to hate the song because they sound like this one was one that they kept doing again and again and again until they finally got it right. Like you hear some of these early takes and you're like, yeah, that's not working. That's not working. That's not working. They finally got it, but what older John Lennon didn't realize is once they finally got it, they fucking got it like motherfuckers. This song's fucking awesome. He should have been proud. He should have been bragging about how the Beatles invented fucking heavy metal with this song.
Yeah, definitely the dual guitar playing.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. I mean, yeah, it's an amazing song. Are you kidding me? It's one of my favorite songs off of Revolver. I absolutely love it. It's really rocking and really heavy, and it's awesome. All right, the next one. When I'm 64. Notice there's been a lot of John songs. Now we're going into some Paul songs.
Yeah.
He said, Granny music. I would never dream of writing a song like that. There's some things I never think about, and that's one of them. All right, I'll take this. This song sucks, but I love it. That's all I can say. It's actually, if it was recorded, let's say, 30 years prior to Sgt. Pepper's, probably would have been a great big hit because it was of that time, that rag music, whatever.
Yep.
I love it. I love the song, but I can understand where he's coming from, but I really don't think it sucks. I actually love When I'm 64. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not one of my favorites. I wouldn't say I don't love it as much as you do, but it does sound like a standard. Like it sounds like this would have been like a hit song in the 20s or 30s, and it's impressive that McCartney could write a song like that. Apparently he wrote it too, like in the early Cavern days too. Obviously didn't have all that arrangement, but yeah, I mean it's kind of like he's saying it's granny music, like a dig, but obviously Paul's going for that. Like it's supposed to be like, yeah, this is the music of my grandparents. This is like the kind of shit they listen to, or I heard when I was a little kid. So it's not like it wasn't intentional. Like, yeah, this is supposed to be like old people's music. He's doing a thing. He's doing a bit, and it's a fun bit. And definitely in the context of Sergeant Pepper, it's like a cool little, it's like in the movie too, the Yellow Submarine cartoon. It's just like a fun little like it's like they're putting on a play and doing different things. And this is just one of the things. So I don't know. John Lennon, he's just sour sometimes on some shit. Like it's a fun little ditty, It's not. I don't think Paul took it that seriously, and the lyrics are really clever and humorous. So I don't know, John Lennon. Sometimes that guy, I tell you.
Next one, Lovely Rita from Sgt. Pepper. He said that's Paul's song. He wrote that song. He makes him up like a novelist. You hear lots of McCartney influenced songs on the radio now. These stories about boring people doing boring things, being postmen and secretaries. And I'm not interested in writing third-party songs. I like to write about me because I know me. All right, what do you think of that?
Okay, I got a lot to say about this. This is probably the statement I disagree with the most so far, because yeah, we know John Lennon's a narcissist, so he only writes about himself, which is fine. That's great, you know. John Lennon's an interesting guy, so it's not too boring when he writes about himself. That being said, there's other things. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to write a song. Just because McCartney wrote songs in different, in a different manner, you shouldn't be shitting all over it. But the second thing is, he's wrong about the song. He's misinterpreting it. It's not about Lovely Rita. It's about the guy checking out Lovely Rita and how he thinks she's hot and how she's inflaming his desires. It's a hot song. It's a sexy, kinky song. And it's about sexual desire and daydreaming and stuff. So I think he actually is interpreting the song wrong. It's not some boring song about a meter maid. It's about a guy checking out a woman in uniform that he finds attractive and expressing his lust. It's probably one of McCartney's sauciest songs, and it's one of his strongest melodies. You know, I know you and I both discussed this before, and I love the piano sound. I love that coda. It's awesome. It's probably my second favorite song on Sgt. Pepper. I love this fucking song. So, and I think it should have been a single. So definitely disagree with John Lennon on this one.
Yeah, and even if it was a boring song about boring people, dude, filling in a ticket in a little white book. That's all I gotta say about that. I mean, how cool is that little line? And made it look a little like a military man. I love this fucking song. This song is pop again, and totally the dark horse of Sergeant Pepper. You think about how popular Sergeant Pepper is, to the world, and yet that's kind of like a song that's not really, you don't hear on the radio, and you should. It's a great pop tune. It should be on the radio with a little help from my friends and getting better. I hear those on the radio. But this song, I think, is even more melodic than those tunes. Weird thing. All right. Next, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. He said, I heard Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds last night. It's abysmal. The track is just terrible. I mean, it's a great track, great song, but it wasn't a great track because it wasn't made right. You know what I mean? Like, I guess what he's saying is that George Martin messed it up. Because he says he could have done it better if he recorded it. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, to me, is a psychedelic masterpiece. Absolutely nothing wrong with this song. I love the little dreamy intro and what he's saying, all those, just his wordplay, and, picture yourself and all, newspaper taxis and all this weird, these words that Scott Weiland tried to do a lot later on, tripping in a paper cup. Yep. But that's besides the point. I love Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I think it's a freaking masterpiece. What do you think?
Yeah, I know this, and a lot of this comes from that later, I think it was Playboy interview. It was just like a few weeks, if not days, before he was shot, I think. But he had this real reactionary stance on psychedelic music. It's just something I noticed and I'm sure we'll get to a few of the others, but a lot of his classic psychedelic songs, he had this issue with the production. Like he felt they were very dated, I guess. It's kind of like how people, maybe how Judas Priest would think of Turbo. But obviously, it's not like that at all. It was very innovative, revolutionary production work, and I don't think it was dated at all. A lot of teenagers I knew and stoners and what have you, that's what got us into the Beatles, was the psychedelic period. It was because the productions were so crazy, even still to this day. Like, you listen to Lucy in the Sky with Diamond, that song still sounds revolutionary and innovative. The production work's amazing. The effect on his vocals, it's not even one of my favorite songs on the album, but when I was a teenager, it was shit like that got me into the Beatles. I was like, oh, this is cool, this is trippy, and it's the production's one of the best things about it. I mean, it's just kind of a Lewis Carroll inspired nursery rhyme, So lyrically, it's fitting, it's surreal, but to me, the sound of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, is the main thing. So, for him to think, he's going to do it with acoustic guitar and piano, that totally wouldn't fit the vibe of the song. The lyrics are all it's a trip song. So, man, it's just like John Lennon, get back on acid. Acid's calling you. It needs you. Get back on it.
Yeah, man, come on.
Yeah.
Fools. All right, good morning. Good morning's the next one. He says it's a throwaway, a piece of garbage. I always thought, I always had the TV on very low in the background when I was writing, and it came over, and then I wrote the song, and it's garbage. I hate it. Now, I will say, I'm not the biggest fan of the chorus, but I love the rest. I mean, the chorus is a little annoying. I'll admit it. Good morning, good morning. That annoys me, but the rest of it, nothing to do than that. Love it. I love the rest of Good Morning. So I agree that the chorus sucks. That's all I think. But I love the song minus the chorus. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like the song as much as you do. I'm a little with John Lennon. I don't think it's garbage like he thinks. Like, he's definitely harder on it than me. I definitely do not like that chorus. That chorus is annoying. It's short though. You know, the verses are all right. I probably like that part when he kicks in that bridge about the people running everywhere and the horns. Like, I like that melody. Probably, I think, the strongest part of the song. But I don't like this is one of the songs that the production does sound a little dated, like with the animal noises and shit. Like, that's something that I feel like they would only do in 67 because, you know, they could do it, you know. So it's a little overproduced. But, you know, there's worse songs in the world by all means. But, you know, I'll give him that one. Not that great.
All right, the next one is Hello Goodbye. He said that's another McCartney, an attempt to write a single, and it wasn't a great piece. The best bit was at the end, which we all ad-libbed in the studio, where we just threw something in at the end. All right, this is what I got to say about this song. I love this song, but if you were to ask me, I don't love the end. I love everything before the end. That hey la, hola, whatever. Not bad. Don't get me wrong. That's the part John is saying he loved. I like everything before that way more. That's how I feel about Hello Goodbye. What do you think?
Yeah, well, he loves that part because he had more to deal with it. But I like it. I mean, I like it. It's a good song. It's funny when he says he attempted to write a single. He succeeded. It was a hit song. So, like, McCartney did quite a bit. He succeeded a lot. So it wasn't like a failed attempt. It was a successful attempt at a single, and it's a very catchy song. It's definitely pure McCartney. Yeah, John would never write a song like this, but it's like ear candy. It's a perfect pop song. It's a perfect pop song, and yeah, it has a little touch of psychedelia, but not as much as some of John's songs from that period. And yeah, I like the ending. It's like a nice little coda, but yeah, it's not like the best part of the song. But I dig it. It's nice. It worked well with "I Am the Waltz" as a side, B side single. You know, so I dig it.
Yeah. All right. Next one's Lady Madonna. He said this song never really went anywhere. Doesn't like that one. What do you think of Lady Madonna?
I like it. It doesn't go anywhere thing. I think John Lennon's, I don't know. He has a weird interpretation. Like, they're not writing novels. These are little, like, 2-minute songs. It's a little slice of life song about some woman, a mother. It's kind of like actually a proto-feminist song before John Lennon started writing songs like that. So, but in a more subtle way. It's kind of like Paul McCartney's "Woman is the, of the world." But it's a fun little Elvis ditty. It's catchy enough. I like the piano and Paul's vocals. I will say I don't like the song as much as McCartney does, because obviously McCartney loves the song because from Wings On, this was always a song he played a lot live. And there's so many better songs that he wrote. I never understood why he loved Lady Madonna so much. He just always plays that song live. But, it's a good song. I think John's being hard on it, but it's definitely not one of my favorite McCartney songs.
Never really a fan of this one. Never really hated it, like all Beatles songs. But no, I put this on the lowers, man. It's not horrible, but it's not one of my favorites. So next one is Obla Di Obla Da. He said, this is how the fucking song should go. When John Lennon told Paul McCartney, the way that song started, din, 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 was John Lennon's frustration with that song. And he goes, just start the song like this. Dan, 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 dan. And my old guitar player, big Beatles fan, dude, loves the Beatles. hates this song, and I'm sure a lot more do. I love this song. This song is like just, man, no matter what crappy mood I'm in, I put on a song like this and it cheers me up. It's just a fun song. I think it's a beautiful song. It's a little, quirky at times, but I love Obladi. I think it's a great addition to the White Album's, diversity. I love Obladi. I think it's a perfect pop ditty. That's how I feel about it. And may I add, when I saw him, I think it was in 2010, it was the highlight of the show. When he played this song, the stadium went fucking apeshit. And yeah, it was the highlight of that show because that's a song that I don't think he ever played till 2010.
Yeah, he doesn't play it much, so that's why people got excited. It was like, oh, it's not Lady Madonna again; it's something different.
Yeah. I think he didn't play Lady Madonna that night, and yeah, the place went ballistic, man. I love this song. What do you think?
I like it. I don't love it quite as much as you, but I do like. And again, this is like on a Beatles level. Like when I say I just like a Beatles song, like if it was another band, I would love it. It's just like there's so many other Beatles songs. There's so many songs on the White Album, but it's a great song. Again, it's ear candy. It's it's what now. This is just about boring people. The lyrics. So this one, if John Lennon had said that about this song, I would agree with him lyrically. But the melody is so catchy, and I love Paul's bass line and piano. I think I like that earlier anthology version with the acoustic guitar a little bit better. There's something about that I feel the harmonies and melody comes out a little bit more. Like it's a little, because the piano, there's a lot of like bells and whistles on the White Album version, where I think they get in the way of the melody a little bit. And the melody is such an amazing melody. So I know this is a song that I've heard a lot of people that even do like the Beatles don't like this song. Like they think it's annoying or a little too cute. But I know, I like it. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. It's like cool that there were songs like this and like Martha, My Dear, but then Paul would do stuff like Helter Skelter and, why don't we do it in the road? Like that was the contrast that was so cool that McCartney could go through such extremes. So I dig it a lot. I think it's a really good song. And John Lennon needs to get the fucking broomstick out of his ass and have fun.
Yes, sir. All right, next one's Birthday. Birthday was just written in the studio, just made up on the spot. I think Paul wanted to write a song like Happy Birthday Baby, the old 50s hit. But it was sort of made up in the studio and it was a piece of garbage. I'm not the biggest fan of this one either. It's all right, but honestly, most times I pop in, disc 2. I skip this song because it's the first song on the album and go to the next one. Not one of my favorites. What do you think?
I disagree. I love Birthday. Now, Birthday is another one that I do know a lot of people don't like it. They think it's a little corny, but I don't know. It's so rocking. Ringo's drum beats. Woo! He does that break, when it's just his drums. I fucking love it. And it's a great riff and it's rock. And it's just, this calls to mind. It's like a heavier version of what they did in the early days. It's John and Paul actually together, actually writing a song together, something that they weren't really doing so much at that period, and they're screaming their heads off and they're just having fun. It's just a fun rock and roll song. Plus there's that midsection where the guitars start going dun 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 dun. Let's go to the party, that part, where if you just listen to that part, that's like the Ramones. Like they invented punk rock there for just like a couple seconds. There's a bridge. It's like the Ramones just took that one part and said, hey, let's do a whole song like that because that's like the coolest part of the song. And it's just like the Beatles were so revolutionary that in just like a couple seconds they invented a genre of music and didn't even know. They just kept on playing the song. Like they didn't say, hey, stop, we did something new there. And that's the thing. Like John Lennon in 1980, I can't believe that he would hear this and not be like, hey, look, we fucking invented the Ramones.
Right. That's a great point. I never thought of that. Rocky Raccoon. He said, couldn't you guess what's with all this Gideon Bible stuff? I saw Bob Hope do it once on the telly years ago. I just thank God it wasn't one of mine. All right, Rocky Raccoon. What do you think?
I love this song. Another one I loved. I always loved it when I was younger, like a teenager with a guitar. This was a song I was very happy when I first learned to play it. A lot of the songs on the White Albums had pretty basic chord progression, so I learned a lot of those songs. It's fun. I like the lyrics. They're offbeat. They're quirky. I know John doesn't like those kind of songs, those McCartney songs, when they're not always about something so overtly and they're not about him. McCartney did have emotional songs that were about himself sometimes in the Beatles, but sometimes he just did songs like this, which were just kind of, fun. It's just a fun song lyrically. I love the sound of the guitars. I love McCartney singing. I love the mood, and it kind of works I consider that part of the White Album. It's like the animal suite. Like, you got Blackbird, Piggies, and then you got Rocky Raccoon. So like in the context of the album, it kind of makes a lot of sense. And John and Paul sequenced that together. But, John at that point in 1980, he wasn't giving up anything about like how him and Paul did cool things together. Like that wasn't what he was about then. He didn't want to bring attention to that. But I feel like in '68, John would have felt different about some of this stuff. Even then, even when they were fighting, I feel like they were kind of doing some cool shit together on the White Album that in 1980 he wasn't going to own up to because he was suddenly anti-Paul again. But I don't know. But I like it. I think it's a really great song.
Yeah, I love this song. No problem whatsoever. A good storytelling tune, and I like the little changes and McCartney talking like he's from like Alabama. Good stuff, man. It's a great song. I absolutely one of my favorites, I would say, off of White Album. All right, next one, Cry Baby Cry. He said it's a piece of rubbish. What do you think of that one?
It's a lousy piece of garbage rubbish. This is another one. I remember when I read this, I got angry. I got angry at John because this is one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs, one of my all-time favorite John songs, one of my favorite songs on the White Album, be it like a top 5 song for me on the White Album. How usually the White Album ends for me, unless I'm listening to it on vinyl. Like, this kind of like, okay, that's like the last like real song. And it's amazing. I get like this was John, and I think he said this too in the interview. Like this was him kind of writing like a Paul song because it wasn't about him, So it's kind of like a fable, and I think he did a really good job. And the melody, it's just so simple but affecting, and his singing's great. The mood, there's so much atmosphere to the song. I love the piano. It's amazing song. Like it's just. I don't know. It just like seemed like John Lennon just couldn't appreciate melody anymore in 1980. Like I understand he could still write good melodies at that point, but he didn't seem to think that there was value in just melody in and of itself. Like it had to have a message. Everything had to be a message or be like a journal about his life. Like he couldn't just write a beautiful little dark fable. To me, there's a little bit of a fairy tale darkness to it too. I love it. I think it's one of his greatest songs. And I think the White Album overall is John Lennon's peak as a songwriter. I think he's amazing on that album. So yeah, I definitely disagree with that.
Yeah, he talks a little bit about like black magic in the song and shit,
Yeah, they do a seance at night.
Seance in the dark. Yeah, it's cool shit, man. To me, this is a perfect ending to the White Album because this is a song that ends the White Album for me. I don't care about anything that comes after this song from the White Album. I love it. It'd be up there. My favorite, I think, off the White Album, though, would be I'm So Tired. That song is just so amazing.
Same here. It's my favorite, too.
And this is up there, man. All right, next one is Maxwell Silver Hammer. He says, I hated it. All I remember is the track has made us do it 100 million times. I love that song. It's a quirky little, quirky song, but it's about a guy running around killing people, to this happy-go-lucky music. It's a great contrast, and it's fun, man. It's the fucking Beatles. What do you think?
I could definitely get how this song would annoy you if you had to play it again and again and again. So again, I get that, and it's totally not the kind of song that John would like. I've had mixed feelings about the songs. It depends on the period. Like sometimes I like it, sometimes I think it's kind of silly, but I like the synth bass. There's this little synthy kind of Moog, I think Moog bass. You got a Moog synthesizer on it. That's cool. It's cool. It's one of those quirky kind of fun novelty songs. I dig it. It's unfortunate, I think, because you got on Abbey Road, it's like you got Come Together, something, and then it comes to that song. Whereas I think if it went to Oh Darling first, and then if they flipped them, Oh Darling was like a much meatier, better song, and then you're like, you would allow McCartney to just have a quirky good time after that. Like, but I feel like it made him look kind of lightweight compared to the other two guys, even though I don't think he was lightweight, especially on Abbey Road. But that song it's like a fluffy song, but it's fun, and it works with the album on a whole.
Yeah, I love that song. It's fun. All right, next one is Mean Mr. Mustard. He said it was a bit of crap that I wrote in India. I read somewhere in the newspaper about this mean guy who hid 5-pound notes, but not up his nose somewhere else. It's short. It's to the point. It's an integral part of the killer melody of the Abbey Road side 2. It's a great addition to Palm Theme Pam and whatever else you have. It's wedged in. It's just, to me, it's perfection. It's just one section of the perfection melody that starts with Sun King. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, it's one of my favorite parts of the medley. I like when I love that bass, that big fat kind of distorted bass that McCartney has. It's this kind of funky fat bass line along with the piano, and I think John's singing's really cool on it. He sings in kind of a lower voice, and it's a cool song. It's just a little ditty, but I think it's strong and it adds something. And I like that John had these little fragments that he inserted into McCartney's medley, because then it made it like really Lennon McCartney, like that's the fucking Beatles, like and it showed that what they can both bring to the table, and it was a side of John Lennon that I wish you saw that side a little more throughout his solo career. Like that's the thing. I wish there was a little more stuff like that, or I'm the Wars, or And Your Bird Can Sing. Like there was this whole side of him that he cut, just like once he was done with the Beatles, that was it. It was like half of him was gone as a songwriter, and it was too bad, because I love that side of him as a songwriter, and he could kind of keep up with McCartney. He could beat McCartney at his own fucking game. McCartney would throw out a Michelle and he'd throw out a girl, and he didn't have that anymore in the 70s, so he would just kind of, and he had some great stuff in the 70s, but there was a side of John that we never got to really see again, and it's too bad. And I love that side.
Yeah, it's a great tune. Next one, he says, is Sun King. He said, we just started joking, Paul knew a few Spanish words from school, and we just strung any Spanish words that sounded vaguely like something, but it's a piece of garbage I had around. All right, what do you think?
I think we could play a drinking game with lousy and garbage. No, it's not one of the best songs on Abbey Road, but it's it's a nice little ditty. Again, it's short. It comes in good after You Never Give Me Your Money. Like it's kind of it's perfect where it is. The sequencing is half of that second side of Abbey Road, and the sequencing's good, and them just kind of doing some bullshit fake Latin, it works. It's a nice little ditty, and that's all it is. So I think John's just really being hard on a lot of this shit.
I think it's a beautiful song, a great addition to Abbey Road, to lower the whole, the music, to make it very chill. I think it's awesome. All right, next one is Dig a Pony. Over the years, people tried to interpret it. To me, I interpret it as it's a piece of garbage. So he's not a fan of Dig a Pony. What do you think? And that's the last one, by the way, that I got.
I wonder what John Lennon would think about the band Garbage. Man, Dig a Pony. Now, Dig a Pony was a song I used to not be crazy about when I was younger. I used to not really like that album, Let It Be. I thought it was like their weakest album, and I was not into it. But over the years, I grew to like it. Especially, I started to get more into like rootsy kind of music, like bluesier shit in the late '60s, early '70s, and I started to get into it more. Now I love it. I think that chorus is really powerful, and I love him and McCartney's vocals together on it. And it's a rockin' tune. It's a rockin' tune, and I like these cryptic, weird lyrics that he was writing the Beatles. That again, he didn't write so much in his solo career as much. Things were more like straightforward, heart on your sleeve, and I really like the lyrics, and I think that chorus kicks ass, and it's a great song. I think it's one of the better songs from the album.
Love it. I love I Dig a Pony. You know, but you know, I mean, I can kind of tell where he's coming from on this one. Because at the time, I mean, juices weren't really flowing during that time. It was all documented, which you can see 150 hours of it now. And but it was probably a hard song to write for him. But I think the end result was a catchy, cool tune. Another catchy, cool Beatles song.
Yeah,
So,
and that album needed a few more rockers too. So it gives Let It Be a rocker, so it's not just all like piano ballads.
yeah. But Eddie, thanks, dude. Give a plug to the people, man. I know you got a few things out there that I check out. Let the people know.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you like hearing me talk about music, well, I do that quite a bit on my YouTube channel. It's Eddy Cannistraci, and on it I have videos kind of like this where I'm talking about, what I think about a lot of classic rock, heavy metal. I throw in a few genre curveballs here and there, and there's also the podcast. I do a podcast with Eric Jordan, RMCP, the Rock Overview podcast, which this man, Ralph VIERA, the one and only, the fucking podcast king himself, he has been on our show several times. And in fact, we did a 2-part Sergeant Pepper episode where, goddamn, that was long. That was like 6 hours.
That was a long, long sit. Yeah.
It was like the time of like 4 or 5 Sergeant Peppers combined. But there's a lot to say about that album. So yeah, we were
interesting show either way,
Yeah, and then you also were on a Ramones one, which was great. And my favorite one was actually the Elvis one you did with us. I really liked that one because we got to hear another side of Ralph VIERA, the side that loves to cry to an Elvis ballad, like all real men do.
Exactly. Only men cry to Elvis.
Yeah, so definitely if you want to check out Ralph talking to me some more, check out those episodes of the Rock Overview podcast.
Right on. So thank you for your time, bro. And this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Ralph. Rock on.
Right on, man. Schmack, I'm a guy, Eddie.
Later.